Hello, everybody, and welcome. I'm delighted today to be joined by Marcus Elliott-Brown from the Great Pitch Company. Marcus, hi, how you doing?
I'm very good, thank you, Paul. Very good indeed. Very excited to be with you today.
No, it's great to see you again. Great to see you. Marcus, you and I have spoken, and indeed you've done a video with us once before, a few months back. But for those people, and I can't imagine there are many who haven't watched it, could you tell us just a little bit about yourself, please, and the Great Pitch Company?
Yes, so as you say, Marcus Brown. Not everyone calls me Marcus Elliott-Brown, but thank you. And I am in charge of the Great Pitch Company. Basically, I've had a 30-year career working in our industry, predominantly for WPP, and then for Publicis Group, and either as in the account and client servicing or in business development. So I've run agencies, I've run client business, and I've also been a business development person at a local, regional and global level. Before in 2019, I unleashed my inner entrepreneur and set up the Great Pitch Company.
Fantastic, fantastic. So, Marcus, you guys have just done some really brilliant research on the sort of state of the nation for new business and the like, and the agency landscape. And I'm really excited because you've agreed to share that with the findings of that with us today. So,
yes.
I'll pass over to you.
Okay, well, thanks, Paul. So today, absolutely, we're going to cover, as you say, the findings from our Great Pitch poll, which we've been doing annually, and this is the latest set of results. And then we're going to share with you some recommendations that we had coming out of the poll that we wrote up and were reported in campaign that would be nice to share with your network and with the people watching this video, and love to get your thoughts on those too. So without further ado, let's get on with it. But first, I should just give you a little bit of an intro as to who we are and why we do the poll. So the Great Pitch Company, we set up essentially to help agencies drive up win rates and drive down wasted resources. And we have two services that we offer agencies. Great Now, which is where we help agencies to convert live opportunities, whether it's pitches or re-pitches, into wins, essentially. And what we do is pitch consultancy and performance coaching. And the other area we have of business is called Great Forever. And this is where we align the culture, people and processes so that an agency wins more whilst reducing the wasted resources. And we do that through either training or through consultancy, going under the hood of an agency often to develop growth plans in collaboration with the senior management team. So those are the two services we offer. And we do this for all sorts of companies, from independent agencies, networks of independent agencies, and we're delighted to have Mission at the heart of our slide there, through to the holding companies and their networks and almost everything in between. It gives us an unparalleled view of the business development scene across all types of agencies in different geographies around the world. And that means that, you know, given we're called the Great Pitch Company, often people say to us, so, okay, what makes an agency great at business development? And we've codified this, and I'll use this just because we talk about it during the poll. Let me just quickly go through this so that you have our strategic approach. We've codified it as what we call the Great Wheel of Fortune. And, you know, this isn't rocket science. You know, an agency needs to be great at three things in order to be functioning successfully. It needs to be good at existing business, marketing, and new business. In terms of existing business, first job, priority number one is to make sure you're retaining your business and not losing clients out the revolving door. After all, new clients don't want to be meeting exiting clients. But you've also got to be good at growing scope, you know, whether that's different disciplines or different geographies. and for some businesses about extending it to sister companies. The second area we look at is how good is an agency at its marketing, starting with its own proposition, and then how well they bring that to life across their paid, owned and earned channels. And then the fifth area we look at is new business, and there are 5 areas here. Culture, you know, how far does the new business culture extend beyond 1 or 2 people? You know, that often used phrase, new business is everybody's business. How good an agency is at prospecting, qualifying, converting and negotiating. Those are the 5 key areas. And as a business, what we've also done is plotted all of the contributing factors of those. So it gives us a really good insight into the key drivers of business development success.
I find that chart fascinating and scary in equal measure, I have to say.
Oh, yes. We find it very helpful because it gives us an area to really concentrate on when we're collaborating with agencies. So let's get on to the Great Pitch Poll, because that's what we're here to do today. And just to give you a bit of background, this came about from back in 2019, I think it was, when we first started the company. I wrote an article for Campaign, which was with the headline, "Winning new business doesn't have to be at the expense of mental well-being." Because that's, you know, we see we're in working alongside agencies in the trenches on pitches. We see the pressure that pitches put upon our people, you know, as an industry, our people, agencies. And since then, the team at the Great Pitch Company, we've been championing better pitch practices. And of course, you know, if you don't measure it, you won't improve it, using that old adage. So we set out to do the Great Pitch Poll, which we've been doing annually since then. And this is the latest set of figures that we released earlier in 2025. The survey is done using an online survey. It's amongst people who work at UK agencies. It has a statistically relevant sample size, and people work across all different disciplines, whether it be media, advertising, integrated, digital, or one of the other classifications. Almost half, 49%, identified themselves as either working in new business or marketing specifically. And just to give you a bit of insight, we often use the same questions year on year to allow us to compare this year to the previous years. And sometimes we mothball questions and bring them back. So it's statistically relevant and allows us to do comparisons over the years. So the first area we ask people about is the challenges that they face with regard to new business challenges. And you can see here highlighted in pink, the number one challenge people say is, look, just generally having a heavy workload. Indeed, 45% of people said that was the case. The second biggest challenge is that there's increased competition from agencies similar to our own agency. So heavy workload, more competition. And then the third area that people are identifying is that the pitch brief requirements are getting ever more complex. And that was reported by 35% of people. By the way, we're seeing that a lot more now, pitch briefs getting more complex. And we suspect that this is partly people who are writing briefs are using AI to help them, and AI is developing you know, very in-depth briefs with lots of criteria to address. On the one hand, you could argue that's a good thing. On the other hand, that increases the burden on the agency, so can be more challenging. The fourth area is people saying that they have a lack of staff, lack of resources to work on pitches. Although interestingly, that was down versus previous years by quite a significant margin. So, and of course, the other areas that are down are the challenges that in previous surveys, like working remotely or pitching virtually, were challenging. We've all managed to work our way through that. And then the last one, just to note, I think here is that last year, certainly in the UK, there was reduced pitching activity in the marketplace, and that was up by 20% versus the year before. So a significant challenge there. We then asked people about mental well-being specifically, and we ask about their agencies, their intentions, what are they saying? What do agencies want to do? And then how are they actually doing it? What are the actions that agencies are taking? And in terms of intentions, when we asked people to select one of the descriptors, my organization regularly communicates on issues of mental well-being was selected by nearly 60% of the respondents, 2/3, so a significant amount, although interestingly, that's down quite a lot since the COVID peak in 2021. So perhaps that's understandable why there's a difference, but still, thankfully, at 2/3, people, it's on people's minds. In terms of actions, so here we asked, to what degree has your organization implemented plans that support mental well-being? 10% said their agency had done little, 52% said they had made a start, whilst 38%, almost 40%, said their organization had made great strides. So obviously we want to just keep seeing those figures reduce at the lower and get larger on the make great strides as the poll continues. In terms of specifically what are agencies doing to support mental well-being, internal comms is by far and away the largest area. So people talking about the issue, it being it has a share of voice in the agency life at 70%, and that was up versus previous year. The big rise here, which is people getting dedicated days off. So, in days gone by, pitches were often seen as just something on top of your day job. Now people are going, okay, if you're having to put in extra hours or the extra burden, we're giving you that time back. So you get dedicated days off in lieu, up 25% versus the year before. So significant there, Paul.
Yeah, very much so.
Employee engagement initiatives, so this might be reduced gym membership or a number of different things. Almost over half of the respondents at 55% reporting there. Training or classes, 46%, and counselling, screenings, surveys, external speakers, more or less the same year on year, but down versus the COVID peak, but perhaps that's not surprising. We then asked people about training, and we asked them, in which areas does your company need new business related training? And we gave people a choice that they could tick, and the number one area that people wanted help was presentation or performance coaching. 56% of agencies up versus the previous year. The second area is agencies want training on how to do prospecting effectively. I think all of us recognize, it's an area that, often when you're busy trying to keep your existing clients happy, you're busy responding to live pitches. One of the first things that falls off the table is prospecting. People want to know how to keep that always on and to make that effective. People want help in terms of telling their strategy or storytelling better, and generally how to win more. So how to increase your pitch to win conversion rate, cited by 43% of the people. We then asked, so does your company need to dedicate more budget towards new business training initiatives? 65%, I think that is around there, said yes. Obviously, some were very happy. They got 20% of people said that wasn't necessary, and some obviously didn't know, maybe because that's not their area of requirement. But we know that this is an area where people often get exposed in pitches. You know, we often ask people to step up pitch. They may be quite junior. Clients want to meet the people who are going to work on the account. We push them into these areas, and sometimes that can be really very stressful for people, and they want to have the training in advance. So this underlines that fact. We then ask people about the pitch positive pledge, and I'm sure some of your people will know about this, but not everybody. So let me just tell you a little bit about this. So this was an initiative taken by the trade associations in the UK, the Trade Association for the Advertising Industry and the Trade Association for the Advertisers, the biggest advertisers in the UK. UK people for sure will know them as the IPA and ISBA. They came together and to address, in fact, part of the partly down to the championing of this issue that we had started. They launched this, I think it was in 2021, maybe 2022, as an initiative to get both advertisers and agencies to work in a positive way when pitching. So mindful of the impact on mental health. So when we ask people to what degree have you heard of the Pitch Positive Pledge, unfortunately, remember this is amongst UK agencies, 35% or so had said they'd never heard of it. Just under 20% said they'd heard something but not sure. Just over 20% said they were aware but not sure if our agency has signed. Smaller number still fully aware and our agency has signed, just over 15%, and then some fully aware but our agency has not signed, just under 10%. So obviously room for improvement here, and I know the teams at IPA and ISBA are certainly trying to do that. We then asked them to the degree that they believe that the Pitch Positive Pledge has had a positive impact on pitching in the UK, and they were able to score this. And unfortunately, maybe because of the awareness issue, as we've just seen, it got a low score, 3 out of 10. And that was obviously disappointing to the team at the IPA and to ISBA, and they're now working on Pitch Positive Pledge 2.0 to again keep fueling this area. They totally recognize it's an area of priority for their business development committee. This year, we also asked people about their place of work. We see lots of headlines, don't we, about this? And obviously, in terms of work-life balance, especially in pitching, a company's approach to flexible working is important. And so we asked the question, if your employer insisted on you working from the office more than the current requirement, might it cause you to look for a new job? And wow, interestingly, just over 40% said yes. By the way, we did ask them how many days do they work beforehand, so we can cut the data and go deeper here. But the headline figure is 44% of people would say that it might cause them to look for a new job. just a little less said no. So interesting in that area. Some didn't know. We also, in a new question this year, asked people, has working in new business ever made you consider changing job? So has the stress of working in new business or on pitches ever made you think of changing job? And quite frankly, I find this figure shocking for our industry. 42% said yes. So, you know, this is having a real impact on people, and it's not something that we can just ignore, turn away from, hope it's going to get better. We have to work with the teams that make up our industry to help them navigate the complexities of working on pitches or new business. So big figures there. I'm sure you'll agree that's shocking, isn't it?
It's extraordinary. I mean, going by the rest of the survey, I'm not surprised you end up there, but nevertheless, that doesn't make it any better. And the sort of support is very, very obvious looking at that.
And in fact, we then asked people, has working on new business ever made you think of changing industry? So, and again, we get a very high figure, 33%. So a third of people in our survey, which, you know, is statistically relevant, said, actually, the stress of working on new business or pitches has made me think I want to change out of the communications industry and work somewhere else. That's not good. You know, people are the lifeblood of our industry. You know, these figures are terribly worrying. Change of direction slightly. We asked people about pitch fees, you know, an oft-debated topic. And we said, do you think if charging a client pitch fees were commonplace, would it have a positive impact on pitching culture in the UK? Perhaps not surprisingly, 85% of people said yes. And I think this is an area that it's often been debated before. We'll come back to it, but I think these are not unrelated, and I'll explain a little bit more later. A smaller amount said no. In terms of what proportion of pitches did you receive a pitch fee of some sort? So majority of people said, you know, 2/3 of people were like less than 5% of all of our pitches get any sort of fee. But shows you that pitch fees are being paid by some clients in some parts of our industry.
And Marcus, just sorry to butt in, but and this is obviously UK orientated there, but do you get a feel for the sort of pitch fee situation internationally?
Really varies country by country. So somewhere, if you go to Germany, pitch fees are almost commonplace. So, you know, often people say UK and Germany, similar size of markets, similar, you know, sophistication of the marketplace, but one manages to get pitch fees paid, the other market doesn't. Same, you know, we can go to other markets. South Africa, there's a greater proportion of pitch fees paid, for example. So it does depend upon the marketplace.
Yeah.
We asked people about intellectual property as well. So does your agency ever hand over intellectual property rights in exchange for a nominal pitch fee? So here we're saying a pitch fee of less than £25,000, you know, that's about the same in euros or US dollars. Most people didn't know. The second, the highest was people saying no, they don't. But the really worrying part here is that 15% of agencies are handing over their intellectual property rights for a nominal fee, which is crazy, and we would strongly discourage any agency from doing so. We asked the same question, but would you hand it over if they were to pay you £100,000, dollars, euros? Most people said no, or they didn't know. But again, a worry. Well, I don't. A 15% said yes. I have less of an issue about people handing over property rights if there's a decent return given for it. That is something an agency can go into. Just don't do it for a nominal fee. Obviously a commercial decision for each agency.
Indeed.
It's not all bad news. What are the positives of working on a pitch? Tick all that apply. So, you know, very high scores for, I love the fact that I get immersed into a different category. I get to work with different people across the agency. You know, there is, as we all know, a thrill of chasing new clients. Scored lower is perhaps the privilege of being selected to work on a pitch. People didn't quite follow or buy that one to the same degree, but they did, you know, significant numbers, 2/3, get to work with the best and most senior people, and people do see it as an opportunity to learn. You know, when it's done well, pitching is, of course, arguably the best or one of the best parts of our industry. And finally, we asked people, do you think AI might replace your job in the future? 77%, let's say, said no. Some people didn't know. Some people said yes. Of course, who knows precisely what the amazing AI will do. Probably it'll mean that we're still going to be employed, just in a slightly different way, or using the technology to our advantages. Clearly, agencies are doing so massively within the new business arena already. So, in a whistle-stop tour, Paul, I realised that was quite speedy. Those were the findings of the Great Pitch Poll that we released earlier in 2025. Shall I talk you through what we see as a business, that the recommendations are coming out of that?
Yeah, and I think that would be very interesting. Please do.
So we broke those up, in fact, for an article in Campaign. We called it A Plan for Pitching, Creating a Fairer, Healthier and More Effective Process. And essentially we had 9 things that we recommend that the industry contemplates, debates, and actions ultimately. And the first we recommended is that we really need to understand as an industry the cost of the pitch for both agencies and advertisers. So you may well know in the US there have been studies done by the trade associations in the US that put the cost, a very robust piece of research that put the cost of the pitch at an average of $200,000, I think it was. And interestingly, that figure doubles if you're in the incumbent agency, so $400,000. Interestingly, in the US, they found that was the same in terms of cost for clients. So in the US, that's driven a lot by they use intermediaries a lot more. And they also, you know, within that cost put, you know, the time impact of not choosing a new agency and all the different factors. But for the first time, it made us understand that pitching, you know, we all know it's expensive for agencies. We didn't really think about the cost for advertisers. The important thing of knowing the cost for advertisers is we can use it to discourage advertisers from pitching.
Exactly.
By going, you know how expensive this is going to be for you and for us, admittedly. Let's resolve the problems, or let's look at this first before going to a competitive situation. So we've got to have the research, so we're talking from the facts. The second area I think would be a quick win is we've got to stop those agencies that are giving away intellectual property rights for free or for a nominal pitch fee. That's got to be stamped out urgently, and people have got to be saying, we're not doing it. If you insist on it, we're not pitching. So that was our recommendation 2. Recommendation 3, as we spoke about a little bit earlier, your question was very pertinent. Pitch fees, we believe, need to become the norm, as they are in some other big European markets, and we spoke about Germany being a prime example. And I know there are complications, and I think the script that goes around it needs to be well articulated. As a business owner, I know we have to invest in growing our business. We're willing to invest £100,000 or £200,000, or even if it's £50,000, we're willing to invest that, but we'd like you to put a small nominal fee on the table. That might be £5,000. But what we find is when clients do that, it resolves some of the problems, like them inviting too many people to the pitch. We really understand that they're committed to the pitch. They don't stop the pitch halfway through. They don't ghost us, which happens to many agencies after pitching, where clients seem to disappear and not get back in touch. By paying these pitch fees, I think it would bring in better standards on both sides. Fourth area is we definitely need to continue in the UK the momentum created by the Pitch Positive Pledge. We've got to drive up awareness and drive up that efficacy score. But I do think we need to distill the Pitch Pledge down into a one-page. We encourage our clients to do a pitch agreement that states what they'll do and what clients need to do. So, and even if you don't get everyone agreeing to it, you should be having this conversation with your prospective clients. They need to clearly outline the process at the beginning to include the timings and the stakeholders from their side. They should identify the number of participating agencies at each stage. So, I'm investing £50,000 of my money. I'm not going to do that if you're inviting 10 agencies. I will do that if you're being sensible and you're inviting 3. It's a perfectly decent business conversation to be having. I think it's fair to ask, at least, who are we competing against? So given that level of investment, I want to understand who my competition is, so I can bring my best resources to be competing against those agencies. We should get clients to codify the budget range, at least up front. I've worked with clients where they've done a massive pitch. They thought the budget was probably going to be, I don't know, 250,000 or £500,000, and the client comes back and goes, no, actually it's 100,000 or less. You've got to have some parameters so you know what you're playing with, and as I say, pay a pitch fee, even if just nominal. Number 6, we think there would be great benefit from there being audits conducted on pitches to see to what degree both parties have adhered to the Pitch Positive Pledge. That could then have a certification program, something for IPA and ISBA to think about. We work with an agency in Brazil that's inverted the process. So they start with money negotiations first. So they share with the client their rate card, their approach to remuneration. They insist that the client engages on that to start with, so that they are in the ballpark, because there's no point doing it if they are double the price that the client is willing to pay. And I think it's an area that's definitely worth exploring. Will it happen on every occasion? Probably not, but let's at least explore it. Number 8, encourage agencies to qualify more carefully. I understand, I've been a CEO of an agency myself, the pressures to get the revenue in. Let's pitch, we might have a chance. If we don't pitch, you've got to choose your pitches with care and caution, and really go for the ones where you've got a good chance of winning, and then really put everything into it. Fewer pitches and win more is the way to do that. So we'd encourage agencies to qualify more carefully. And then finally, we would recommend that agencies really prepare people better for the emotional roller coaster of pitching. We know, we've done many pitches. We know the likely emotions, the ups and downs, the happiness, the fear, the feeling of rejection, when senior people don't like what your strategy or whatever it might be. And because of that, what we've done is we've started a new training program with an expert pitch well-being coach, Paul Wilson, and we're now offering courses to agencies either on live pitches or before they're involved in pitches to help prepare teams better to cope with the ups and downs of the life of pitching.
That's a great idea.
And there, in a rattle stop tour, Paul, is the findings of the Great Pitch Poll and just some of the recommendations, and would love to know what you think.
I think that personally, I think this is great, Marcus. There's a ton of stuff in here which actually some of the stuff we know and we sweep a little bit under the carpet. Some of the stuff is like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. But of course, what you've done is statistically backed this all up through the questions that you've asked people.
Yes.
If anybody who's watching this wants to pick up a little bit further and take the conversation with you, I assume it's okay just to reach out to you. We'll put your name and stuff on the end slide.
Absolutely. Just email me. Marcus is my name, Marcus, at thegreatpitchcompany.com. Marcus at thegreatpitchcompany.com.
Brilliant. Marcus, I look forward to diving into a little bit more detail into the results. It's fascinating and extraordinarily useful in equal measure. So thank you so much for sharing that with us today. Really appreciate it.
No problem. Happy to share further with individual agencies. And of course, remember, we have a special offer with Mission Group. If one of your members wants to take our health check, our online health check survey, we're happy to do that. It's free and gives you an insight into your business development priorities. And we've done it for a number of your members, as you know, and it seems to have been very popular. And if people would like to do that, happy to extend that to people.
The details for that are on the website, and of course, contact me if you need it, of course. But Marcus, as ever, thank you so much for sharing your insights.
Thank you, Paul.
Really appreciate it, and we'll speak soon.